I wanted to talk to you today about an experience I had, which I've never spoken about publicly, and it was suggested that I make a video about it, and so now seemed to be the best time. It's about something called an OBE, which is called an out-of-body experience. A lot of people have heard of an NDE, which is a near-death experience, where the person dies, usually in a hospital or something, and they leave their body and they have an experience with loved ones over in heaven or wherever you want to call it, and then they come back and they talk about it. And these have been documented by scientists and doctors. There's tens of thousands of these things that have happened, so they're not that unusual. But what I had was an OB, which is an out of body experience that was a little bit different. I didn't die, but I had a very strange experience and kind of a strange life ever since. So I'm going to tell you all about it and a few stories, and then if you have any questions about it, you can reach me at the link below the video. The reason I'm making this video is because it has a lot to do with what I do now as a teacher, and that'll be further explained in this little video. So the OBE happened when I was probably about 4 or 5 in Philadelphia, where I was living. And the experience was that I sensed sort of like a bird's eye view, not really being in my body, but that there was a larger presence. There was something that was not separate from me, certainly bigger than me, but part of me. And it was very real. It was more real than life on this earth. And it gave me the impression that this life was really just a dream. But in this particular experience, or one similar like it around the same time, because I had a couple of them, I was shown a vision of what my life would be like. And one of the things I saw was that there was going to be a lot of ups and downs, that I would also be kind of well known, and that I would end up being a teacher of something very unusual and would leave an impression of these teachings on the planet when I finally died. So from the get-go, I never felt like this life was real. I felt like a fish out of water, that someone had dumped me into some sort of a school that I didn't want to be in. I wanted out. I kind of still want out. But that this was very confusing, because I was living sort of in this dream, but didn't feel like it was real. And I felt that way my whole life. Of course, I thought I was alone in this. I'm not. But as a young kid, I did. I also had an unusual talent for playing the piano by ear at the age of 5, where I could hear a melody and then just play it back. And at 13, when my mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack, I ran into a girl by the name of Anne, who played an instrument called the mountain dulcimer. And she was also involved in Sufi mysticism. And I couldn't even tell you why I was at this party, except that everything's probably predestined. And I met her, and I knew immediately when I saw the dulcimer that that was going to be my life. And I kind of followed her to learn about Sufi mysticism at the age of 13. Just bizarre in its own way. The other little thing I want to tell you, which I'll talk about further in this video, is that I had an obsession with Peter, Paul, and Mary and Joni Mitchell. My generation listened to rock and roll, but there was something about Peter, Paul, and Mary which ended up playing a big role in my life. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So anyway, my life rolled along, not particularly happily. My mom died. My father remarried a little too soon, but that's what he chose, and that was the path that I was on. And I'd only played the dulcimer about 2 years, and I got a record deal with Folkway Records, and all those records are now, I made 10 of them. All those records are part of the Smithsonian Institute. Since then, I've made, I think a total, it's probably 50 albums with the dulcimer. And so I started to perform, and when I was in my maybe mid-20s, I had a very, very strange experience happen. I again had something like, I guess you would, I call it an OBE because I really didn't feel like I was in my body when I kind of saw this kind of thing happening. But I saw that I would be dying. And I was going to give a concert in Philadelphia with my friend Roy, and I told him about this. I said, I'm telling you, man, something's going to happen. And he said, oh, nothing's going to happen. And I knew some people who were into psychic stuff, and they said, oh, you're not going to die, you'll be fine. So I went and I gave the concert, and on the way home, there was an ice storm. And what would have been a 45-minute drive from the Painted Bride where I was performing to my house was like a 2-hour thing because it was really, really bad. And when I got home, I lived in an apartment next door to my parents. And I think Roy and I got back, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang. And it was a hospital calling, and they wanted to talk to the parents of Kevin Roth. And I said, well, who is this? And they said, well, this is so-and-so from the hospital. And I said, well, what do you want? I don't understand. And they said, well, who are you? And I said, I'm Kevin Roth. And she kind of like didn't say anything for a second. She said, well, we're trying to reach a Kevin Roth family because someone was brought in here and he died tonight. And the name Kevin Roth is in his license. And this is the number on a business card. So what had happened was that his sister, somewhere along the line, picked up my business card, I guess, and gave it to him because we had the same name. And we were also both from Chester County, oddly enough, although we had never met. And he was in a car accident with a friend of his and unfortunately broke his neck and died. I had had a really bad neck ache. I think it was the same side where he broke his neck, although I'm not sure. I had to go to a doctor. I had to go to a massage therapist. This thing would not leave. This was for about 2 weeks before. And I was just sure I was going to die. I mean, it's just, anyway, what happened is they announced it on the radio in Philadelphia. And they had been playing my music on the radio at that time. And they started to play my albums in memorial to me, and it was a very strange experience because when I told Roy that the hospital would call, he like just freaked out. He said, oh my God, I can't believe this. It wasn't all that strange to me because everything was strange to me. It always has been. But in the morning, neighbors came over to my parents' house with food to show their condolences because this was all over the news. Kevin Roth from Chester County passed away. Kevin Roth was a recording artist and dulcimer player and had nothing to do with the guy Kevin Roth who had actually died. It was very interesting because I kind of got to see how people would react to my death, and I had absolutely no idea that many people cared or thought that highly of me or whatever. But my father had to come next door and wake me up and to see if I was alive because literally he had like 3 neighbors coming over with food and things that people do for other people when someone passes away. And I told my father about it, and he already knew that I was kind of a little off the beaten track anyway. Later on in my life, another experience that happened was that I got into children's music, and I became very well known, and I became rich and all that kind of stuff, and I was pretty miserable. And none of it really lasted for very long. But it was through that I actually got to know Peter, Paul, and Mary, and they became really good friends of mine and mentors. I was great friends with Mary, and Peter did a duet with me on one of my albums of Puff, Magic Dragon, and Noel Paul Stuckey and I did an album together. So it went from like having this passion for this group to them really helping me in my career down the line. But I had an impression that things were about to get really bumpy. Even though I was very successful, I was also relatively unhappy. So what I ended up doing was moving from California to Florida, where my father lived, and hanging out there. And around 2013, I guess it was, my father passed away at 90. And right before he passed away, although none of us knew that he was going to die, my mother, who I hadn't thought about for years and years and years, I felt her presence, and it wasn't really an OBE, but I felt her presence in my kitchen telling me that I needed to prepare for something that was going to be coming up. And then a couple days later, my dad died. But in 2013, I had another OBE experience. This was a really big one. Again, I saw a bird's eye view of what was about to kind of come. I didn't really feel in my body, but it showed me that I would have a big illness and that I would probably go to Kansas, live with my sister for a while, and then move to California, and everything would be okay. And I didn't have any idea what that was about because I was really healthy. When I got to Kansas, out of the blue, I discovered that I had melanoma, which really shocked me. And they had run a series of tests, and I was waiting for the results. And I had another OBE experience because it had been a really long time waiting for these results. And I was looking at a picture of my father, and I sort of felt kind of, again, removed from my body somehow. And I could almost hear him say to me, "You're going to hear tomorrow, and it's going to be really, really bad, Kev." He always called me Kev. He said, "It's going to be rough. You're going to be okay, but it's going to be a tough, tough time." The next morning at 9 o'clock, doctor called and said, "Kevin, bad news. You got stage 3 melanoma. There's only 4 stages to it, so that's really bad." And they ran some more tests, and cancer hadn't gone anywhere else, thank God, but there was a 70% chance it was going to come back and I'd be dead in a couple of years. And I had a couple doctors tell me, that's kind of what's going to happen. But I knew it wasn't because I'd had this experience. As it turned out, never came back. It's been 5 or 6 years. I'm fine. And I did actually move to California. I live in San Diego now. And then a really weird kind of experience happened where I was sitting on my couch and I was thinking about what I should be doing next with my music. And this whole vision came of that I would be a teacher and I would be teaching people how to get through problems in their life, how to realize what really mattered to them, why, and to get a game plan and to teach this in some sort of spirituality. But I wasn't clear what it was, but I had this real strong desire to do it. And 2 months later, COVID-19 hit and the world shut down. So during that time, I developed this and got a few clients and began to teach them what I knew. And it worked for them. And I brought the dulcimer, the instrument that I play, into it. And in fact, I even created a dulcimer called a cosmic dulcimer. I call it a wink. Here it is. And I play this because I teach something called Dulce meditation, which kind of helps people kind of get into this trance state thing where they can actually see what they need to do. Anyway, the whole point, and really the major point of this video, is that I have discovered, in fact, that the vision, the out-of-body experience as a young kid is true. And science is actually proving this with quantum physics and string theory, and it connects to all of the old mystical teachings. This life is a dream. We are the dreamer in the dream having this dream. It sounds bizarre, but I'm telling you, this is not it, okay? You can look at things even, just right in front of you. Like people say, well, it's in your mind. Well, where's the mind? If you open up a brain, you can't find a mind. You look at someone who has died in the casket, where did they go? Their body's there, but where did they go? So if you do a lot of investigating and studying of this, which I have, because I've always been interested in this since my experiences as a young kid, it all comes down to consciousness, something called consciousness. And no one can describe it because it has no form and it's not describable, but it exists. And I believe that was the presence that I felt and that I feel and that we're all part of. So my whole life with these experiences have just felt like the Twilight Zone. And I feel that the real reason for this video to be made is to bring awareness to people that this isn't all there is. And that you can get all the fame and fortune, I didn't have a lot of it, but I had enough of it, I've had over $1 million, to know that that does not buy you happiness. And what really buys you happiness is finding that home, that sense that we all long for. And it's not here on the planet. But there is a way to find it through spiritual seeking and all kinds of other ways. Some people have NDEs, like I said, where they have these near-death experiences and they report back to their doctors on the operating room, when they were flatlined, exactly what happened. And the doctor says there's no way you can know that. You are clinically dead, but they do. And again, these have been reported by other doctors and surgeons. Ebenezer Alexander, there's a woman, I forget, but she's a spinal surgeon. She drowned for 20 minutes and saw the whole vision. She had sort of like an OBE, but it was an NDE. So I feel that my life is to teach now really what I saw in the vision, which is this information and what I know, and how to kind of navigate your life. And I believe the dulcimer came into my life for that reason as well. And looking back, everything is connected. Looking forward, the only visions that I've had that I can recall, because I haven't had an OBE since right before the COVID thing, but that this was going to be really known, and that I would be reaching the right people, and the right people would be reaching me. It's not like I'm a teacher, I know everything. This is a connection process. So nothing happens by happenstance, and it's all in a way sort of a fig Newton of your imagination. But it's real in the sense of living in a dream world. So if you have any questions about this, besides which psychiatric hospital you'd like to admit me to, there's a link underneath where you can reach out to me and answer any questions at kevinroth.org. And just as a side note, a few times I just thought I was like crazy, and I went to psychiatrists, therapists for a brief period of time. I went to one who was a Jesus guy. I went to one who was like a Buddhist, and I went to some woman. These are all over a period of years. And none of them denied what I had. None of them said, no, you're crazy. They said, well, okay, you need to follow this. So, the whole thing is like a setup, and it's really bizarre, but it's the dream, and the dream is the dream, and what can I tell you? It's the Twilight Zone, and I try and make the best of it. So thanks for watching, and here's to any good experiences you have.